Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
Today we have Brian Desveaux, good friend of mine, Nashvilleian. Not always a Nashvilleian, though. He comes from maybe one of the most epic rock bands of the 90s, Story of a Girl. Everybody knows that song. It's one of those songs, 9 Days, of course, is the band. It's one of those songs that whenever it starts, everybody in the room starts singing. Literally, everyone will start screaming at the top of their lungs. And one of those records that was, if you look back at a decade, it is probably, arguably, of course it was a number one song, arguably one of the biggest songs defining that decade. It would be on a compilation of any video you'd put together for that. And that's a fascinating story. That in and of itself, being in that band with the size and scale that band was, would be enough to talk about. But what we really want to talk about is his move to Nashville, his decision to move to Nashville and to dive headlong into just being a songwriter, right? Like not like wearing the badge of being a rock star, but just plug it in. And that's what he's been doing since, 2007?
Yeah, late 2007.
Wow. So welcome to the show, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
That's really, I think, what's most fascinating to us, and I think the people that listen to this program, it's like, oh man, what a move, right? To just pick up, move to a city that you don't know anyone, and dive headlong into being a songwriter. Like not resting on the laurels of having that massive record, but like just coming down here and earning your stripes. And now you're a part of the songwriting community. You've been all around town. We've written together. I had produced a song on the new 9 Days record, the most recent one. I assume it's the most recent one. Y'all cut another song that we wrote together. It was an absolute joy writing with you guys. Great songwriters. Zero fear. I mean, they come in from another market, different style of songwriting and went into this Nashville style of songwriting where it's just a pressure cooker, essentially.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of ego, a lot of good ego to be able to do that, and then to be free enough not to like be a stumbling block to the writing session. You guys it just flowed easily writing with you guys, and you guys write with everybody. You write with everybody around town. John's not in town, right? John Hampson.
No, John's still in New York. We've kind of all picked our different, we're not making a living as a band anymore, but we still play. Obviously this year's been really tough, but John is an English teacher and I'm in the wine industry, which has been kind of tough this year too. But we actually have a deal right now with Cleopatra Records, and it's just kind of sitting there because I'm here and those guys are on Long Island, and we're writing, but we're just kind of passing stuff back and forth right now. I just put out a solo record, so I was kind of tapped for a while, but started writing again. And I'm not sure when that's going to occur. Hopefully next year.
It's a killer record. I listened to it this morning, and "City Don't Break My Heart." I don't know if that's the single, but in my opinion, it should be the single.
Yeah, a good friend of mine loves that song too. It's the record is a personal record. It's about family. It's about losing my parents. It's about selling my family estate. It's also about meeting my wife, getting married. And then that song kind of sits in the middle somewhere. And I just felt it fit because it does define the past, years of my life here being in Nashville as a songwriter. I wrote it with Kate Bowen a while back. And like I said, after some stuff that's happened in 2017, John Hampson was telling me he's got all these songs laying around. He's got to record. He's going to put out a record. He just said that to me last week too. So I was like, all right, I'll do a record too, and I had all these country songs laying around, and I was just going to go into one of these studios, drop a couple grand and come out with a record. And then, my life kind of changed here and there. And I wrote "Wish You Were Well," which is the first single.
Yeah.
And
first
that
song
kind
on
of
the record
everything.
too.
What's that?
That's the first song on the record, right?
Yeah, it kind of started everything. So when I wrote that, everything changed, and the songs just started coming out. Half the record I wrote by myself, which I haven't done in a long time. After moving here, I just became more into the collaborative thing. So for the first time in a long time, I was writing songs by myself, but they were just writing themselves because I went through a lot of stuff. And but then I just kept pulling songs out of that set list, and I looked back. I said, "Oh, these songs fit too." That I just recently wrote with other people, and then the record just kind of made itself. It kind of all just happened.
So it's a 10-song full record, which is kind of unique these days too. And what people may not know is that you've got a killer voice, great guitar player,
right?
Thank
you.
But just like a killer voice. We've played a bunch of rounds together at the local watering holes, you and I, and these songwriter shows. In Nashville, we'll do these shows where you just sort of tell the story behind the song, and you'll sing it, for folks. And it's real intimate. It's a really great experience. And you'll have 4 songwriters up there, and you go, just down the line. Really great hang. And you and I have done a bunch of those together. Great songs. Great songs. And then your voice. I mean, it's just like, that's the little value add. It's like we had James Otto on, he sang a song, and we just fell apart just listening to his voice. So I'll speak for myself, but Mike and I come from, it's like, we got to work super hard and then beg someone else to sing it to really sell it, to get that feeling in the room. But man, you've got the gift too. It's just, it's a really cool thing. You've got a great relationship with John. I mean, from the outside, watching you and John, you guys are the founders of 9 Days, and you make it work over a long period. That band has been a thing now for 20 plus years, right?
Well, we started 9 Days in 94, I'd say. And John and I have been playing together since 91, and we kind of grew up in the clubs of New York.
So
in separate bands.
Is that
and finally got together.
26 years, 26 years of being co-creators. And it's like, you guys have managed that really well, which is tough. I got to hand it to you. Like Mike and I know, it's like, how many creative relationships do you go through where it just becomes untenable and people just go their separate ways, So this is, I think the overview of what we just talked about here, it's like, okay, he was in an epic, massive band, has been able to sustain that for 26 years in a creative partnership that you guys will go on and make more music together, which is a stunning thing to be able to do. It's like a marriage. You've been able to come to Nashville and be respected as a songwriter, be welcomed into the Nashville songwriting community, and make a record in Nashville with 9 Days, as well as your own solo record, and then on top of that, it's just like you've got your own solo project coming out. So it's like, that's a lot of people would have stopped after 9 days, right? There's something about like the lifetime of being a musician committed to like, this is what I do. I don't do anything else, right? I can't.
Exactly. It's in me. It's in you, when you have it. And I said, if I quit music, I'd still have melodies popping in my head and ideas, and I just wouldn't be able to, Yeah. And so the solo record is, after going through a lot of stuff the past 3 years, good and bad. I think half the record is stuff you never want to write about, but you probably eventually have to. Yeah. And then the other half of the record is stuff I've waited my whole life to write about, like getting married. And
what's fun about those records is you write these records and you think like, oh man, should I do this? But as a songwriter in Nashville, and Mike, you can attest to this, it's like a secret weapon. So we all write these songs, we demo them, and then they go through the mill where it's like a bunch of handlers listen to them before anyone actually gets to listen to them, right? It's like it's got to go through this incredibly wasteful process of like launching a space shuttle where solid rocket boosters are veering off into the Indian Ocean, and that's your song. It never gets heard. It never makes it into, lunar orbit. But the secret weapon is like, you think you're writing this thing as a record. You think you're writing it like for yourself, but then people start to listen to it that wouldn't listen to it through the regular means of the machine in Nashville, right? So you'll find that Tim McGraw will find a copy of your record. Someone turns him on to it because creatively they're like, you got to hear this song on this record. Next thing you know, you've got a cut on a Tim McGraw record. And it's like the secret way to get cuts in Nashville. I've had a ton of them. I think almost all of my cuts have kind of happened that way. I don't think any of them, there might be, my publisher helped immensely along the way. Kelly King, who was on the program, she's like completely supportive, and it was like, it takes a village. But, like my 2 cuts on the Tim McGraw record, both of those songs are on there because Tim McGraw had a record that me and my buddy put out. and he cut both of them. I pitched one directly to Missy Gallimore and left that meeting feeling like I had blown my opportunity to play something. I felt like, oh, I'm such an idiot when I left, because what she'd said about this song. He can never cut that song. He cut it the next year. But it's like, it's cool. It's a secret little, if you're moving to Nashville, or if you want to get a song cut by somebody, if you can write a record that's so good, this goes back to what Mike always says, which is like, if the music's undeniable, like Phineas, right? The stuff that Phineas is doing.
Its way. Yeah.
It finds it. People were like, we had this conversation where I had said, how many, you walk out of the Kroger or the Publix and you're walking to your car and there's $100 bill on the ground. How many times you step over $100 bill? 0 times.
Right.
And songs should be $100 bills. They should be undeniable. And we can't always write them undeniably, but
a really good point. Brian doesn't know this, by the way, but he and I have gigged together.
Really?
Yeah. Back in the 90s. Way back.
Your name sounds familiar, actually. Where?
Way back in the 90s, I had a band out of Syracuse, New York called Johnny Vegas. And we played at the Nines by Cornell in Ithaca, New York. This is before, I think, Story of a Girl was a hit. But I remember you guys, we had a big crowd in Ithaca. It was like, if you remember the Nines, it was like a pizza place that had.
I remember.
Yeah. So you guys came to play with us up there, and I can remember hearing not just Story of a Girl, by the way. It was all the bands. Like, it was a New York. There's something different about bands from Long Island or New York City. They were just more advanced than we were as a band. And I just remember like going, holy shit, these guys are so good, man. You guys I felt like you really like schooled us, man. And
we played a lot. Like back in the 90s, we had a cover band too, and it was the same guys. We had a girl singer to do those kind of gigs, and we went under a different name. So we were playing like 7 nights a week sometimes. And I'll even say, like, I have some of those radio shows that we did, and the band was so good. Yeah. We could still play, but we weren't as tight as we were back then. And we, I remember the Nines. I remember it being a pizza place, but it's hard. There were so many of that, And I think because we recorded the record in '99, but it actually wasn't released till 2000. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about 90s bands, we kind of wrote and recorded it then, but we came out in 2000. Someone was like, no, we're a millennium band, But we were, the record should have came out in 99. And for whatever reason, Sony was like, we're going to put this off till 2000. So that drove us crazy. So our management, we were like, listen, just put us on the road. So that was one of those gigs. It was Howie Schnee. I don't know if you know Howie Schnee.
Howie was my manager.
Yes. Okay. So that's how it happened then.
Yeah.
And
that's wild.
We did this tour from upstate New York all the way down south, and it was memorable, I'll say.
Yeah.
There were some good shows, and then there was some, we were in somewhere in North Carolina, and we got to the club, and there was like NASCAR was in town. I don't know where that actually is, but I think it was Fayetteville or something like that. And we walked into the club, and it was just this dirty club, and there was literally a toilet bowl in the middle of the room, like they were renovating or something. And there was a little PA with like 3 microphone stands and a couple cables. So we called our manager. We're like, hey man, here's what's going on. And he's like, leave, get out. Yeah. So that was one of the bad ones. But I remember the Nines gig vaguely, and the upstate stuff we did was fun. I remember those gigs.
Yeah, some cool places.
Dude, that's got to be so rewarding too, to go from walking out of a gig like that to playing. I'm sure you've played big hockey rinks, on that.
Oh yeah. We did the Garden, the Jingle Ball. That was awesome.
And everyone there is singing your song. It's like, that's got to be something to.
I mean, we played Inauguration.
What is that like playing Jingle Ball or something like that? Like, I'm dying to know. I've never come anywhere near that, as a.
Well, it was awesome because I had voice problems that night, actually. So for me, it was like on the fence. But yeah, the Garden. I mean, we grew up going to concerts there.
Yeah.
For me, the New York Rangers, they had the Christopher Reeve Foundation when Christopher was still around. Every year they had this celebrity hockey thing. Tim Robbins, ex-Ranger players, hockey players, like everybody, and I saw it and I told my PR person, I was like, I don't care what you do. I want to be on this. So they got me in. So 2001, I got to play hockey with some of the old Rangers and meet Messier and everybody at the Garden. So that was almost bigger than actually playing music there.
I got to say, that's the best part of the music business. It's like you get something where it's like, okay, you did something really big. And then you get all this ancillary stuff that you have no business doing, right? It's like you got there's no reason logically why they should let you do it. But it's like, okay, we'll let them do it. And you get to do all this little, like, it's 1 degree separated from the music business, but it's just awesome.
Yeah, I'm standing there with Mark Missy, Brian Leach, and Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, and they're like, "Thank you so much for being here." And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, right.
It was surreal, And then a funny story is we're all standing there, and it snowed the night before, so they were all like literally Messier. I think Gretzky was there too. It was really ridiculous. And Chad Smith, we were recording our new record, the second Sony record, which got shelved. But that's a whole nother story. But we're all standing there in the snow, and I had to go, I think I had to fly to Florida or something for a show. So this black limo pulls up, and I walk past everybody, and they're all looking at me, and they're all waiting for a bus to go to the hotel. And I jump in this limo, and they're like, really? I was like, no, it's okay, man. And Chad Smith goes, ride the wave. And he was like,
that's funny, dude.
I rode that wave right into shore to 2002 when we got dropped.
Wow, dude.
So, great moments.
It has to be one of the Lord Alge brothers that mixed that Story
Chris.
of a Girl, right? Okay, because you can just tell. You can tell when you listen to it. It's like, okay, which one did it? And in that era, Tom was mixing probably more prolifically than Chris was, right? Tom was the bigger of the brothers right at that exact moment. Yeah. He was doing, all the Dave Matthews stuff and Crash Test Dummies and
Avril Lavigne and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, and for my money, I haven't listened to him back to back, but I really liked and kind of enjoyed Tom's mixes more. Especially that one Headlight for Dylan. Yeah, the Wallflowers.
Yeah.
I think that might be the finest mix. Maybe
it's incredible.
You can't lose putting that up on the console and referencing it if you're doing that kind of day, right? But the Strat sound in that song, are you playing that?
That's my guitar, yeah. Dude. That is it's a 62 red Strat that Mike McCready used a lot apparently because Nick DiDia produced that record. So we had Brendan O'Brien's all of his gear. We were supposed to record it at Southern Tracks, but it was booked. Southern Tracks, Bruce did the Rising there with them later. I had so many, I love Bruce Springsteen, and I have so many bridges to him, and they all, Ron and Yellow did our second record, and now he's Bruce's guy. But we did it at Tree Sound, and they just unloaded a truck of all of Brendan's gear, and that red Strat was pretty much my sound for the whole record, I think.
And was it that great when you were tracking it, or did that come around in the mix to sound that amazing? Was it just amazing from chord one, or?
The mix had a lot to do with it. It just, I remember John, he'll say it today, like, because we recut Story of a Girl on the last record.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, John said, it took me forever to get that vocal. So you could tell his voice is a little different now. And I think it's really just that first line, which is this is, I was like, you just got to go deeper, man. You're supposed to get deeper when you get older. But that mix, there's a demo version actually you could find on YouTube, which was our demo that we shopped. And it's pretty close, but you can totally tell the difference. And there's a different guitar solo. So whenever the guitar solo comes, that's the demo.
And you played the guitar solo too?
I played the guitar solo in the demo. The second one, here's a funny story. I played the solo.
Because the solo's stellar.
We were, oh God, who is it? John Kolodner?
Yeah.
John Kolodner was listening to the song in New York, I guess with Nick, and he said, that's a number one hit song. That's not a number one hit guitar solo. So John recut the solo parts of it. So from what I remember, it's my 1990 white Les Paul, which is now
the
beginning.
Going into the beginning is my favorite part. Like that's
That's
like,
me.
Like a double
And then,
stop sort of thing going into the sort of pushes the solo, maybe the half note before it starts.
It's funny because, like I said, the original demo we did, it's a Strat, but it's my Les Paul with both of us playing it, and it's just a mash. That's what I remember. Maybe John played the whole thing, but I know their parts are mine and stuff, and that's how it kind of came about. But we had to recut it.
If you have the discipline, and only if you have the discipline, pause this right now and go find the Strat sound on Story of a Girl, the single mix, and it is just one of the best. Like, I've been searching for that Strat sound. Like, if I make all my Strat sound that way, I mean, it was just like quintessential, awesome, like draws you in from beat one.
Yeah.
The vocal line starts off. I mean, that song is one. It has that thing, which is like, I don't know what it is, but that song's a hit song. It's just a massive hit from the first measure. And
I remember when John played it for me, it was a cassette deck in his car, and it was just him playing acoustic, and I'm like, man, that's a hit song. It needs a bridge though. But he had it all done. Like, we got to the studio and we just mashed it out. And he's like, it's a little weird, the changes, but don't worry about it. And that was it. You know?
Well, it takes a lot of fortitude as well to come off a huge record, go back in and then do a record, and then for them to shelf it. That's got to break your heart.
Yeah, you know, it's the what if story. You know, we went in there and we were probably more rocking on stage like than a pop band. Like, there was this misconception of us, I think, where we would literally do a radio show with 98 Degrees, Destiny's Child, and all these pop bands. And then the next day we'd be on a rock fest with Metallica and Kid Rock. So I don't think anyone knew what the heck we were. To me, we were just a pop rock band, you know, a melodic, like Third Eye Blind, Vertical Horizon, these kind of bands, which we toured with and stuff. So we went in to make the second record. We actually wanted a third single, but Sony was like, no, go in. And we were not writing. We were on the road living the life, you know, so we were kind of thrown into it. And I had like writer's block, and I was just trying to come up with stuff, and John had all these songs. And so we made this record that was kind of more modern rockish. It was heavier, and Nick DiDio was busy doing something in Australia, I think, and so they didn't want us to wait. So they said, hey, Ron Agnello, he did discovered Lifehouse, you know, Jason. So we're like, okay. So we met with Ron and we decided to go with him. We tracked it in LA. Actually, we recorded everything in LA at, God, what was that studio? I can't remember where we tracked. We did all tape still. And then we overdubbed at the House of Blues in LA. Rami Jaffe at the time, Counting Crows came in. He played on the track. That was really cool for us because we loved the Counting Crows. And it was a heavier record. Like, the guitars I remember using Mesa Boogies and stuff, and just like, and then Chris Lord Alge mixed the whole record. So it was just like from start to finish, you know. A lot of fans love that record, but it was shelved, and they actually put it out 2 years ago without telling us. All of a sudden, there it was, available.
Oh, wow.
So that was interesting, but it was out there anyway. We leaked it out. It was like, here, you know, here's our record that we never saw the light of day. But, you know, the thing is, nobody told us you really got to write another Story of a Girl, which is what we needed to do. Now, at the time, labels were changing. We went from Sony 550 to Epic. So we went from kind of a small, really cool label branch of Sony into the big ocean. So that's kind of where we lost. Our A&R guy left and went to Warner Brothers. We wanted to go there, but they said, no, stay there. Here's your new guy. And it was just kind of all of that combined with probably not the right record for us to make at the time. That kind of shelved it. And then, yeah.
So then there was a giant break to 2014 or 20. When did you do Snapshots?
14 into 15.
Okay.
So we did the one song with you, and we wrote the other one, which I actually like our version. I can't remember the name of it. I know Two Straws is the one we did at the barn.
Two Straws is the one that made it on the record that I produced.
Yeah.
then the one that I
Isn't it-
really loved was My So-Called Perfect Life,
Yes.
which
And
was
that
kind of a
one,
continuation of Story of a Girl, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
You know?
and that one's great, but I actually like the version we did at the barn more than the actual version we did. No
Yeah,
offense to what we did with Jim.
It was a
Scott,
great
but-
record. And then we did one called The Song that I don't think made it
Oh
on that
yeah,
record.
that made the
Did it?
re-release.
Okay.
That's available, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that's the craziness of making records. It's like you have to find out that your second Sony record got released just from the ether, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like we get together, we write some songs, and then you don't even know if they ever get cut. You know, I was on the internet the other day searching for a thing, and I found out I had a song on Adam Brand's record in Australia. And I'm like, oh, that song
wow.
actually got cut because I'm doing something with the catalog. And it's just like sometimes you just never even find out. You know, and you don't read your royalty statements because the royalty statements have like a billion lines of, you know, whether it was played in a jukebox at a truck stop in the middle of Topeka, Kansas, you know. So it's just an interesting world. It's an interesting story to find yourself. Do you find that you've grown as a songwriter in Nashville? Has it ruined you? Some people come to Nashville and get ruined because they were so special and different. And then they come to Nashville and all of a sudden they become like generic and like all the rough edges that were so unique get rubbed off.
No, I think I'm at my best now. You know, for me, I feel like there's always a craft in songwriting, but I think in Nashville, it's maybe a little too much craft. You go into a room, you stay there all day and you write how many songs, and that's cool. You know, I got nothing against that, but I'm always at my best when it's coming out of me from my emotions and stuff. And I could sit down and write a song any day, but my record that I just put out, there's a purpose to it. Like all those songs came from something that happened or whatever. And that's where my strength is. And it's always been that way. That's why when we did that second record, I was like, I got nothing. You know, I figured the Manning Crowd was an interesting record because they say, you know, you spend your whole life writing for that first record. You know, I think 3 a.m. by Matchbox 20, I think Rob Thomas had that song in high school, you know, but we did 3 records before. So I think we were just waiting for that opportunity to do it. You know, we were all trying to get a record deal like anyone, you know, but as far as songwriting, when I first moved here, my first job was with Miranda Lambert playing guitar for her. It was a fill-in gig, but I got to get immersed into the whole scene and I was like, yeah, this is it. You know, this was 2008. And when that gig ended, I had other opportunities to keep touring with different artists. And I said, you know, I'm going to concentrate on songwriting. Got back into the wine business just to pay the bills and just kind of went for it. And it was cool for a while. And as music started to change in country, I think it's actually changing again for the better. I just didn't really like the whole hip hop thing. I still don't. You know, the finger snap and this whole. So I kind of got discouraged. I'm like, I can't write this stuff. You know, I'm pushing 50. Like, I'm not going to write about these things like that these people. And to me, country is a kid's thing now, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like country music, for me at least, is in roots rock now, like Jason Isbell and those kind of guys. Like my wife and I, we have a bar set up in the garage, and we play darts, and we just have roots radio on. And it's just a lot of great music. And to me, that's
your
record. Like.
Your record fits in that category. When you listen to it, it's not like there's, and maybe I'm missing it, but there wasn't like any fiddle or pedal steel. But there was accordion. There was like rootsy aspects, you know, and it's very acoustic. Your current solo record. What's the name of it?
It's called Full Heart, which is the title track, which is about
But it's totally driven by acoustic guitar. Like that record is like a Springsteen record. It feels like there's rootsy elements to it. It could work to a country audience, but it isn't like somebody moved to Nashville and then put on their sparkly, you know, bedazzled, you know, outfit and 10-gallon hat and started wearing cowboy boots. You know, it wasn't like Nashville took away who you were as a songwriter. It's just kind of like, okay, this is like a record. It sounded like Harvest, you know, it felt
that's cool.
You know, it was very acoustic driven, which it was like, okay, I get it. You know, it's like, this is, so many people do come to town and then it's just about like, oh, what are the rules? Okay, I'm going to follow all the rules. I'm going to run the
Yeah.
numbers. You can't start a chorus on a 2 minor. You can't do this. It's got to be this length. It's got to be this content. It's got to have this exact. It's got to have this rolling lyric. And it's like, it's not wrong, but any monkey can do that. Any computer algorithm can do that, and will do that probably in a year and a half.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have.
I always say to John, I think the term Americana kind of means that it's not like American music. It's just there's no rules. Americana. You kind of just like you're saying, you go about it, and you're right. This guitar right here. So it's a 1967 or probably a 68, one of those years, Nippon Gaki Yamaha. My dad's guitar that my mother bought him for their engagement. It's on every song on the record, and
There's a song
track
about
4
it.
is called
Yeah.
Dad's Guitar.
Yeah.
So it's about, obviously, everything was always, hey, Dad's guitar. Hey, can you get Dad's guitar? Where's Dad's guitar? I've had this guitar my whole life, and it's on every song. And it actually, because it's so old, it sounds really good right now.
There are guys out there that are writing songs that are like what people want to hear. I've never been able to do that. I've never been good at it. But if I wrote a song about my dad's guitar, I at least would know when I'm writing it. I'd at least know, like, oh, I would say that. I wouldn't say that. Whereas, like, if I'm writing a song that's about being out drinking in the field at night, I wouldn't do that. So, like, if a line comes up, I'm like, sure, we could use that line. Do they do that? Is that something that happens in the field? I'm just woefully, I don't have the experience there. So I think what's really important, all the great songs that people are moved, the only songs I've had that have had success were songs that are written out of like some knowing of the topic, really knowing. And it's like, your record feels that way to me. It feels like a completely personal record. The key is finding things that other people want to say too, right? Finding a thing that Keith Urban or Tim McGraw or whoever it is, Morgan Wallen will want to say and say, hey, that's the way I feel. And that's the true connecting tissue of it.
Well, I feel like if there's any guy out there like Eldridge or Luke Bryan or any of these guys, if their father had a guitar, that's the song for them, and they should cut it. I think it's the most country song on the record. I actually had my friend Kyle Everson play some pedal steel on it. It's the only song with pedal steel. And I tried so many different versions of it, so many different keys, because it's one of my favorite songs on the record, and I want it to be big. And it just turned out that it was just me and the guitar and a little pedal steel. And I recorded it live in Vegas at my good friend Paul Umbach, who helped me produce the record. And I said, because he lived to Nashville. I actually moved to Nashville with him. He worked at Jive Records for years and all that stuff. And I said, man, I think I just got to do this acoustic. I'm coming to Vegas. So we played it 2 times, and that was it.
Now, did you record this record in a studio, or did you do it like in your production space there?
We tracked at the bomb shelter in East Nashville. I really wanted like that kind of organic sound, and I wanted to go into a studio that was, it's in this little house, like on the side of Dougson Parkway, one of those roads, Trinity or something over there. And there's parts of it that are live, actually. The last song, My Beautiful Bride to Be and Me, the vocal is live. And I'm playing live. We did add a couple things here and there. And then Mother's Son is tracked live. I did the vocal and the guitar solo, but the outro, which is this long jam, is totally live. But the other stuff we did at Paul's house when he was still here, and I have my little setup, and that was it, really.
Yeah,
and then Paul mixed it.
And he mixed the whole record?
Yeah.
That's the key. It's like we just went over to Welcome to 1979, which is a great space. And Chris Mara, who owns it and kind of is the mission statement for that place, it's like, I really thought it was cool that he was like, yeah, man, all this stuff is cool, but if we need to push it out of the way and bring the Pro Tools rig in, we do that too. That's kind of the best perspective of where we're at. They're all tools. You reach for the right ones at the right time, and whatever serves the song, whatever serves the art is the one you're going to use that day. And I think we're in a spot right now that's like, you can make a record that's completely uncompromised and a nonlinear time base. Doesn't happen to happen left or right. One song could be recorded half in this room and half in that room, and some in Los Angeles or Vegas. It really is, and it's not like it's not any better for it, right? It's not better for doing that. It's better because that's the way it needed to happen. And in the old days, you had a tape machine. It was like you were really going to record your record in one room, maybe overdub in another room, but it had a tape machine, and it was just there was severely limiting factors. And now it's like you can literally record it in the back of a Sprinter van.
Yeah.
You can grab stuff, listen back to the performance off your iPhone, play it into 2 mics in the back of a Sprinter van while you're stopped, and then fly that in wild, and it could be a record. It could be a real record. How cool is that?
That's amazing.
I mean, that's the ultimate in like, there's nothing that you can't do. If you feel like you should be in Lake Tahoe playing in a big, Ponderosa pine diffused thing, if you can get it quiet enough, you could go do that. And it's just like, you could literally just play it back on your iPhone and wild it in, fly it in. I mean, what a great time to be alive. In regards
back
to
to what we were talking about earlier when Brian was talking about the record, it's like, I'm almost wondering if that isn't the best way to, I mean, you obviously the greatest example, Joe, of this. I wonder if that's not the best way to get cuts still, is making a record, and you're writing stuff that's personal, and you're not pitching to people. I think there's a soft sell in this, of that it's somebody hears it because it's just a great record. And they say, I want to do that, like, I wonder if that's not the best way to try to get cuts these days.
Well, isn't that how Blake Shelton got his song, the God song?
Yes.
Didn't you just hear it on Christian radio? And he was like, hey, I want to cut that.
Yes. I forgot the right.
And you listen totally differently too. It's like somebody comes up, hey, I want you to cut this song. You're all of a sudden you're like, whoa.
Well, as a psychological exercise.
Yeah, my no just went up 2x.
Well, but there's no pitch. Right? People are not put on the defensive of like, do you like the song? Do you like this song? It's like, no, I love the song because I just heard it and liked it. Dave Barnes was the guy's name, by the way, who wrote.
Oh, yeah.
The song you're talking about.
Who are some of your favorite co-writes in town?
Joe West.
Okay. Next question.
Well, I wrote Dad's Guitar with Jeremy Bussey. And Jace Hine, and I've wrote with Jace for a long time, and Jace kind of brought Jeremy in. Now Jeremy's having a lot of success with Ashley McBride lately. But Jeremy he's written with 9 Days too. So we've got a couple things on a record before the last one we did. And Bill DeLuigi's always great to write with. I've been writing with Bill a long time. He's got 2 cuts on this record, actually, on my
Bill's
record.
great.
But like I said, other than that, like there's others, but I just haven't really. Ever since I've been in my house 2 years here in Nolensville, and just kind of been living the sheltered life almost. I guess that's how I wrote my record. It's just kind of, being on my own. But we'll see. Like after this pandemic, if I'll get back out there. The new 9 Days record. Like I said, I don't know what's going to come of it, but I love to get with you guys and do something.
Yeah.
With John too, if we do Zoom or whatever. And yeah, I've kind of been out of it. Everybody's probably like, hey, where the hell's Brian?
I think we've all been out of it. There was a point at which we were still attempting to act like we had our old lives. Like you felt a certain obligation to like I don't even call people. Anymore. Some of my closest friends, I don't even call them anymore. It's great when we see each other, but there's almost like an acceptance of like a new reality, and I hope that it changes. But there's like, I think that you could tend to believe that that's just you, but I think it's everyone. Mike, you think that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how it could be anything other than that right now. Like I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing everybody around me just like limping across the finish line this year more than I've ever seen. I mean, it's just obviously been a brutal year for everybody. So,
yeah, as we tape this, it's mid-December 2020. So who knows, you might watch this podcast in a year and a half and be like, what are those guys talking about? They were just about to go into the nuclear holocaust.
A global pandemic going on if you're not aware.
Well, they might be like, oh man, those poor guys, they're about to really get hit. Wait till they see what happens in January.
Right.
I was telling somebody I wouldn't be surprised if Mothra came up out of the ocean, one of those old Godzilla creatures. At this point, anything could happen. And
Anything's
I would
on
just be
the
like,
table. Yeah.
absolutely. You know, during this year, the Pentagon announced that we have been visited by crafts not of this world. They announced that from the Pentagon this year.
The Pentagon to me looks like a landing pad, like it could actually be something that they built on purpose, and they're just
Dude,
waiting.
Like, nobody even talks about that.
Yeah.
That's what 2020 is. It's like that hasn't even hit like the threshold to like give it a news cycle. It's like, wait a minute, what did you just say? Oh yeah. Oh, we told you back in 2020 we've been getting visited by. So what does that even mean? Like that's like a whole other level of like anything can and will happen. You know. So I think the acceptance model, which I've adopted, seems like all my friends have too. We're always pumped to see each other. It's always great to see someone's smiling face. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I'm actually kind of enjoying the isolation. I feel like I'm in my chrysalis, right? You know, I'm like growing some butterfly wings, you know, and like maybe I'll come out of my little cocoon in the spring, maybe not. You know, maybe I'll just hunker down. But I'm not hating it. I've got a nice little thing. I was out the other day and I said to myself, oh God, I can't wait till I get home. I can't wait till I get home and I can like lay down in front of Netflix. Like,
Yeah.
like it was where I was supposed to be rather than out. I was out at a party, you know, a rap party for a record I was doing. And it was great. The people were lovely and I had a blast hanging out with them. It was a complete awesome night. But like secretly the whole way home, I was just like, oh, in 15 minutes I'll be home. I'll have my comforter and I'll be like Oreo cookies, a little bit of ice cold milk, you know. That's what 2020 is.
And the Mandalorian, right?
But I was never that dude, you know. I don't know about you. Every time I was out, like at the Cannery Ballroom, or I was at some venue at 11:30, I'm like, "What am I doing here? Why am I here?" I was never that guy, and maybe that's, you know, maybe there's an argument that you could be more successful if you just completely, you know, are a total scene monster and you're out every night. But do you do that? Do you hang out a ton? It seems like you're hunkered down now, but is your old life going out every night and music and playing?
Well, when we all first moved here, it was kind of like, it was exciting, you know, you didn't know, let's go out, you know, and you never know who we'll see and whatever. So in the beginning, yeah, I was kind of in the scene and I figured you got to play the game, you got to get in there, and I learned a lot. And then somewhere halfway through, it was just kind of like, just don't want to do this. Like I love to cook. I'd rather sit home and, you know,
Right.
watch a good show and make dinner and stuff. And, you know, one of my friends, Jace Hine, said, publishers, it's like, they don't want to know who you're writing with. They want to know who you're hanging out with. Who you're hanging out with this weekend, you know, like, and I'm like, that's definitely not what I want to do.
Ouch. That kills me.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode well for my catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's really true. But you know what? I don't care. Because if you write, I can't make you love me if you don't. Or if you write, you know, any Alan Shamlin song or, you know, Tom Douglas, you know.
House That Built Me.
You write a song like that, come on. It goes out and does the work for you. And
Exactly.
you have to put enough of those together. You got to get in enough rooms and find people. It was like, I distinctly remember writing with you guys. I thought, man, this kind of co-write could be a really rough one. You got two guys from out of town that have had a lot of success. They come in and then it's a bunch of it's a bunch of negativity. It's a bunch of dead ends. It's a bunch of, if it doesn't sound like a finished hit in 5 minutes, well then we're disinterested, you know, like a cat in a ball of yarn. But I distinctly remember writing with you guys thinking, man, like this feels like these guys are songwriters. Like you felt like we were chasing a song and we weren't like writing a song for 9 days. You know,
Yeah.
It felt like we were trying to do something that it was like, I had as much say in it as you guys did. If I came up with a great idea, it was going to go in that song. And it wasn't going to be, we weren't counting lines. We were just it was like we were one part of the same person, the same organism that was trying to do this thing. And that's a really impressive thing to have someone. I had to learn that when I came to town. You guys, you know, you had been here a little bit, so you probably knew.
Yeah. Well, John's very prolific. John writes a lot, so he's definitely open to a lot of things. But like I said, we kind of wrote separately. If there was ever a collaboration, it was usually two parts, kind of like Lennon McCartney. Hey, let's put these two songs together. I think we would write together more now because we've written with a lot of people here in town. Yeah, I had been here for a while, so I was used to that. And John just writes a lot, so I think that whole combination helped the whole process. And we learned a long time ago with producers, like working with, because we were always doing our own thing. We did our own records, and then when we started working with producers, it was like, hey, let's take in other ideas, and be open. Because in the beginning, I was like, no, that's my guitar part. That's it. I'm not doing anything different. So that all changed once we grew as a band and started working with other people. Same thing with songwriting. Yeah.
Well, I think it goes to show what it takes to be successful in the music business, which is like being able to know when not to be movable, but being able to know that if you can connect and be in the room with people you really respect, that they're sort of like clones of you. They can show up with an amazing idea that you will love and will be an idea that you're not capable of having because you just don't have that DNA. Those are the great ones, man. And that's you can write a good song every day, but to write a great, great song, you got to have that chemistry. You got to have something outside of yourself, I think. I was just listening this morning to how Paul Simon wrote Bridge Over Troubled Water. And sometimes songs will just literally fall out of the ceiling, and he wrote that song. He wrote it by himself. But, the vast majority of the success you'll have will be the great songs that will surpass people saying no and people asking you who you're hanging out with this weekend. The ones that surpass all that stuff are songs that I find if you get into a room with some people you really respect, you can get some stuff that you at least have a shot at that song. You at least have a shot. So awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. Where can people find you online?
Well, if you could spell my name, it's Brian Desveaux. There's Facebook, Instagram, and then 9 Days Band. So if you find 9 Days Band everywhere, you'll see me. All of our sites are usually filled with me at this point because I'm the one always posted stuff. Then John has the Twitter 9 Days Band. So, but I'm on Twitter too. I don't really use it much, but it's just Brian Desveaux basically.
Well, we'll put all those listed down. I'll look for all the regulars, and if there's any that are out of the regulars, like Instagram, Facebook, your record. Was it on YouTube that I was watching? One was on YouTube. The other one I clicked to was on Spotify. The whole record isn't on YouTube. Is it the new one?
My record it's on YouTube. Sony Orchid is distributing it. So it's everywhere. Amazon, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify. And it's up on YouTube. We'll
link to that as well.
My wife always says, I don't want to listen to it on YouTube because it's like free. Like, I'm like, don't worry about it. As long as people hear it.
Yeah, man. All right, so we'll post all those. Thank you, man, for coming on and being such a cool dude.
Thank you, guys.
Let's hang out soon. It's be great
Absolutely.
to see you.
I'm going to contact you. We'll do some stuff.
All right, be well. That's it this week. We're signing off from the West Barn. We'll see you next time.